Good morning and welcome to Highlanes Gallery. It's so brilliant to see so many people here across Zoom this morning for another one of our collection talks, lectures or talks. And I know so many of you have joined us over the last couple of weeks, so we're really thrilled to see many people return. What we've been doing over the last couple of weeks since late January, we've been, I suppose, introducing people and those of you who are aficionados, as well as those of you who are looking for an introduction to aspects of our collection. So from the historic elements of our collection to also contemporary art practice. So we've been joined by artists, by volunteers. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be joined by some art historians. But this morning, we're joined by Niamh McGuinne, who herself is a paper conservator and also has just completed an MFA. And we're really delighted that we acquired one of her works, Peripheral, from our open submission exhibition last year. Niamh is a practicing artist in Dublin over 20 years and has exhibited widely. And this morning she's going to, I suppose, bring us into her studio. She's there in Dublin in the factory with a fabulous background, and she's going to introduce us to her practice, to the work Peripheral, and which she made in 2019, and also her broader practice and what she's doing now. And Niamh, welcome.
Thanks, Aoife and the Highlanes. This is great to be here today, to be chatting to all you lovely people. And thank you very much for you all tuning in. It's really nice to see some new faces and very familiar faces. And so, yeah, really, thanks very much. So as Aoife said, I'm going to put the work Peripheral in a bit of context and also just talk a little bit about studio. And then maybe if I can at the end, I might give you some insight into what I'm doing now since MFA post, I suppose, June last year. So maybe I'll start off with sharing screen. Great. Okay, well, this is this kind of very cluttered, claustrophobic looking space is my studio at home. And I thought I'd start off by just giving you a little insight into, I suppose, studios, because over the last, I suppose, month or two, I've been tuning in as well to lots of art, well, for longer, since the start of COVID really, is tuning into lots of artist talks, and you're getting to see people's studios and all the different setups that they have. And this, I suppose, I've been working in, it's at home. So it made me kind of think when I was going through what I was going to talk about today, how your studio can be really useful at different times and then other times you're kind of, well, I've obviously grown out of this one a little bit, but it's a great little spot, and it was brilliant when, especially when the kids were small. I've got 3 kids that are, well, they're not kids anymore, they're adults. And but when they were young and going to school, I was able to work away here while they were in school or late at night. So having it close to home was great. And it, I have a sink, I have a printing press, you can see on the right, a transfer press, a lovely plant chest. So, and pretty much that's rammed full. And then the graphic studio, because I thought I have 2 studios, well, I have actually more than 2 studios. I think I've got a bit of a studio issue. This is the graphic studio where I'm a member, and it's an amazing facility in city centre, well, on the North Circular Road. And it's 4 floors just dedicated to printmaking. So we've got, this is the top floor, the etching floor. And this is, I suppose, a great facility for me. They run a lot of courses. There's a great community there. And I suppose what's most important about it is, while it's a studio, I suppose I can't really leave stuff out because everybody depends on you putting your stuff away. So there's a kind of a strict rule and kind of etiquette that goes with your membership. But as I said, it is a great facility. And then, of course, there's my studio here, which is in the chocolate factory. And I've been here since the summer. This is the studio, actually, is my friend Paula's, Paula Aracht. She runs Art Life. It's a kind of a workshop and event design. She's a textile artist. And so she very kindly let me in here, which I really enjoyed because there's a great kind of a buzz and a nice community here in the chocolate factory. So this is where I'm giving you this talk from. And the other wonderful thing is that basically Paula has everything here. So if I'm ever short of something, I can always ask her. This is the film I'm going to put into context. I was delighted that it was selected for the open submission in the summer. It just came at such an important time. It was in kind of May, June, and we were just kind of getting used to the fact that we weren't going to have a degree show, and that, you know, this COVID was taking longer than we thought it was. So to actually have this, it was great. It was just super to have an actual real physical show to be taken part in. So this is, I'm going to actually break it down into two. I'm going to give you, it's two different films, the left and the right screen that you see there. And they both kind of, they span quite a long period of time. So I'm going to go through maybe the side on the right first, which you can see my leg and a monkey boot. And then go through the screen on the left, and then a little bit about how they came to come together, and take it from there, I guess. So it's a short film. It's only about just over 3 minutes long. It's in black and white, mostly, on Super 8, which was digitally transferred. And I had the sound with a lovely piece composed by Lisa O'Neill. So that accompanies it. Lisa O'Neill and Christoph Capewell. So I'll go into this side on the right, which is the monkey boots. And these are two prints that date from kind of the start of when I got back really into etching. 2010, I joined the graphic studio in 2010. I suppose this print on the left, sorry, my lefts and rights aren't great, but the one on the left, called Her Suit, is from 2011, and one on the right, Monkey Boots, 2014. And both of those, I guess, mark kind of the start of my interest in the idea of a misinterpreted hairiness. Sounds a bit unusual, but it was sparked, as often things are, by reading something. And in this case, I was reading, I don't know if you can see this, this was a great book I got as a present, and it was St. Lucy's Home for Girls Raised by Wolves. And it was a series of short stories that that really were quite quirky and kind of inspired me to do some works based on it's by Karen Russell, I should say. She's an American writer. She's great. She wrote a great story about a bog girl, a boy who has a girlfriend who's a bog buddy. Really, that's her Irish short story. So I had intended with the monkey boots, I suppose, to cover the legs and that with a flock, but I kind of held back on doing that. They were both exhibited in those years in the RHA. And yeah, I think I was also reading a lot of Angela Carter and the whole hairiness on the inside, and looking back at The Company of Wolves, which at the time was such a groundbreaking, I think, film for its special effects. And now when you look at it now, it's hilarious. It's really worth a look back. It's still great, still a really great film. That's a Neil Jordan film. But yeah, so it was all about the grandmother gives the girl the advice to watch out for people who are hairy on the inside, that they're way more dangerous. So that was kind of where I'd started off with this. So I continued, I suppose, reading around the subject of hairiness, and I came across this lovely portrait of Antonietta Gonzalez. People are probably quite familiar with it. It's by Lavinia Fontana. And I should just say, actually at this point, it's a good point to say that I've also got a background, as Aoife was saying, in conservation. And I work in the National Gallery part-time since about 2010, but officially part-time since 2017. And my colleague Maria Canavan and Leticia are working on a big painting by Lavinia Fontana. So I'll just mention that while I get a chance. And I think they're going to have a really nice publication coming out soon. But what I really was interested here was this idea of a kind of a half, when I was reading up about it, all the books, they were really, you know, unpleasant in the way they kind of mentioned this young girl as a kind of either a monkey or a dog. And she just had a condition called hypertrichosis. And they were a family that were kind of, well, I would like to say patronized, but they were kind of kept in the court of, I think it was Catherine de Medici. So this lovely portrait, which Lavinia, I think, has done very sympathetically, it kind of stood out against all these accounts where they were talking about monkeys and dogs. And here on the left is a screen print, or the prep work, a process photo I took of my head on the bottom and my dog's back on the top to make a kind of a hybrid dog woman. And I used this screen in lots of works around this time, and I'll show you some of those now. Okay, on this, what I'm showing you here, you've got monkey boots again. This is a different version. I don't know if you can notice, but on the leg, it's the mirror image of the etching I showed you. And what I did was I printed that screen print of me and the dog onto the metal using a kind of sublimation process that I use. It's printing with a heat transfer ink and then transferring it in a heat press onto the metal. And then on top of that, I covered it in a traditional gesso and then offset the print onto it. And this was me back trying to work out a way of showing hairiness on the inside. And then I scratched away the gesso to kind of reveal this hair. And then two other prints beside it are, the one in the middle is again this transfer print technique with some kind of a wax and caustic medium on it. And then the screen print on the far right is a stencil of, and it's a combination of an animal X-ray and again, my profile, female profile. So I suppose, I actually should say, first of all, I got that comes from a wolf's pelt. I headed off to the, that they're not involving my dog in any way. These ones are from the Natural History Museum where I went in and I saw a very nice wolf pelt in the case, taxidermied. So I took some photos and did a little bit of photoshopping to make up this kind of fictional pelt. Another big interest at the time I kept reading was, I kind of went down a little Google rabbit hole into all this kind of hairiness. And I found this image by Bosch of Saint Wilgefortis. And she was a Christian Portuguese woman who refused to marry a non-Christian, or so the story goes anyway. And she grew a beard in defiance, or, by kind of some miraculous intervention. And this is a newly restored altarpiece in the Accademia in Venice. But what interested me is both, in this case, she was actually decommissioned as a saint in the 50s because they realized that this beard was created by a kind of an imbalance in hormones caused by her anorexia, because it was probably the only way she had left to kind of impose her willpower, her own kind of body autonomy. So again, it just made me think of how when something wasn't understood, it was either explained away as either something miraculous in this case, or something kind of semi-monstrous in the case of poor Antonietta. And this, I kind of finished this work in a way through, this is an installation shot of Wilgefortis, which is what it kind of finished up as, or what it culminated in. And this is shot up there in the Highlanes. It's an installation shot back from 2017. It was in a brilliant show that myself and Aoife and Róisín Kennedy co-curated called Bristle, and Orla Fitzpatrick did an essay, and it was great fun. We had lots of punning on hair, and I put them in a frame like that. It was kind of playing with the idea of the exquisite corpse, that game where I think it was maybe initially a word game, a surrealist word game, but we probably know it better as where you draw a head and fold it over and hand it to the next person, and then not knowing what you've drawn, they draw the next part of the body. And so it's in a mobile rack, so you can turn these and kind of do different combinations. And I liked that idea that it was somebody else who was deciding on what was right and what was wrong. I think one thing, if I was to display it again, I would make sure that you couldn't actually get them all lined up correctly, because that seemed to some people got really annoyed, well, not annoyed, but they really wanted it to look like that it all matched. So I'd like to purposefully not let it be matched. And then on the right are, yeah, my legs in the monkey boots. So what happened really was that I was out of this show. There was another artist involved in the show called So Yoon Lim, and she was based in New York. And from this show, she had introduced me to a curator over in the States who wanted to include this in a show in Scranton. And I couldn't, of course, send over this because it's enormous and heavy, and it would be completely cost prohibitive. So instead, I decided to I submitted a proposal to make a film. So I had filmed the different panels and kind of animated them, but I was never completely happy with it. And I'd also done quite a bit filming with Super 8 of my legs. What I did was I screen printed the hair screen onto a thin tissue and then pasted it onto my legs and walked around my neighborhood very early in the morning, I should add, because I'm not much of an exhibitionist, but I filmed myself walking around the kind of the double yellow lines, and the idea being that, you know, you weren't allowed to stop, that you weren't kind of welcome. And I quite liked that part of the film, but I had intended to somehow combine them. But anyway, as luck would have it, or bad luck would have it, that show was scrapped. The curator left for St. Louis, and whoever was taking her place wasn't quite so interested in hairiness. So so basically those two films have sat for a while. Like, this was in 2017. So yeah, so that's where the right hand screen in Peripheral here, this side, comes from. Because I had about 3 reels, so I had about 10 minutes of Super 8 film that I'd shot around that time. And they were different. I had some that had kind of surrealist, really kind of typical tropes seen, you know, that you see in surrealist film. Yeah, that kind of appealed to me, that kind of really obviously set up trickery. So I should also mention, at the time, I got a lot of support from the Darkroom, which is a brilliant facility in city centre here. It's run by Mela Travers, and they do all these analog systems of film and photography. And so I'd attended a Super 8 festival, not really known very much, maybe a year or two before. And Mela was great. She really encouraged me to take it up and give it a go. So that's where that comes from, and the interest in Super 8. And so I go on to the other side. So on the left-hand side, the stairs, that's an interior shot taken of one of these boxes, and similar to the ones behind me here. Well, they are the same ones. They're just, in this shot, it's an installation of a show I did in the Graphic Studio in Dublin it was 2013. And there was like 35 of these boxes that I had suspended, and also accompanied by about 11 prints. They were digital photographs and a film. And here I have just set up, I think, of about 20 of them here in the studio. And they are, I called it Surreal Estate. It was kind of influenced by, I suppose, what you presume, or, you know, by I was looking at, I think I was kind of on my walking into work every day. I used to pass this house and for some reason I took a photograph of the net curtains because I really liked them. But they were a little bit kind of ratty looking, but I liked the idea that there was something about them appealed. And then all of a sudden they were gone, and this house had been renovated, and I think it was made into offices. And I think I did a lot of that. Then I went around the area taking photos of some of these, because where I lived, there were lots and lots of flats, and it was kind of a real time of change. They were changing from bed sits and flats into family homes. So I was what would the word for us? I wasn't intrusive, but so I did ask where I could, if I could take a photograph, but yeah, sometimes it was a little bit awkward, so I kind of stopped that. I was looking at artists like Kazuo Katase, there's lots of lovely shadows, and there are lots of windows in his work. Bastian Schmidt, her lovely photographs, but also I'd been over to London in a year or two, like I think it was 2008, and I saw an amazing show in the Hayward called Psycho Buildings. And Rachel Whiteread had this installation in it of all these dolls. Like it was a big mountain of dolls' houses, and they were all lit up. And so, but it looked very kind of welcoming, but there was nobody there. They were empty, but they were lit. So they looked occupied. And I was kind of playing with this idea that these little houses had almost little character or personality of their own. So you can see some of them have flexes coming from them. So they have lights installed in them. And those two on the far right of the screen, they are just details of one of the boxes. So they were, as you can see, a big range in sizes, and each one inside had a print. I was using a saline sulfite type etch print at home. And so inside I printed, I had different, I suppose, openings in them. So there were shadows cast from the lighting that I had in the room and within the boxes. And I'm kind of losing track of what I'm talking about. But oh yes, yeah. I like this idea of them being lit up, but that they really didn't want you prying in. So there was a little trigger, and that was so once an audience member came in to look at them, all the lights turned off. So you kind of, it was like as if they were kind of wanted you to go away. And I did that with a guy called Ben Goulon, who ran a setup called Hack Lab in, I think it was in Trinity at the time. And actually I have one here that I really liked that I made. I'm going to set it up here. I'll plug it in now if I'm going to twist this a bit so you can see it. So this one is this box here I had with the print inside, but whenever you went close, the curtain would kind of close and kind of thwart, wouldn't allow you look in. So I really, yeah, I enjoyed making these. They were good fun. It's a bit noisy now though, I'm going to unplug it. But so I had that, and that was all run on Arduinos, so that was kind of interesting. So let's see, where am I? And the prints that I had that accompanied them, these were, I didn't really set out planning to include these. These were taken when I was trying to document the boxes, and I really liked the idea of kind of peering into them. So these were a set. I call these Surreal Shadow. And then I had a film, Shadow Light, that I made with a lovely young animator who just finished an IADT called Svetlana Subchenko. And again, I asked, this was the first time I'd made a film, and I asked Lisa O'Neill to make the music for this, to compose a piece, which she did. And my blurb was, let's see, I'll just read it out if you don't mind. In Shadow Light, themes of watching and being watched are presented to the spectator through a non-narrative sequence, which hints at the private, ethereal existence of spaces independent of us. How does the feeling or knowledge of being watched distort how we behave? Light and shadow play, pattern and effects on glass create an additional visual plane for the viewer, sometimes at harmony with the images in the shots and other times in conflict. And my intent was to kind of blur the line between reality and created fantasy. I'll play a little bit of it and see. I won't play it all, because you can see it. I think it's on my website and also on my Instagram. So here we go. Hopefully the sound, let me know if it's too loud. I'll stop it there. I really like listening to Lisa's music, so I can kind of get carried away just listening to that. But yeah, it's on my website as well if you are interested in seeing the rest of it. But I was really lucky because Gemma Tipton, she saw it and she recommended, proposed it for inclusion in this project that was called a poetry project, and so it was included in that, and that was really great. Again, I kind of made that thinking it would be a more transportable version of, I suppose, this quite bulky installation, but on its own, it's lovely. Well, I really like it. It's one of the things that, I mean, it was really good fun taking these back out again. I had them in cases hidden somewhere, and so when I made Peripheral last year, I had all these boxes again because I'd seen this. I'd had a visit to Chicago and I'd seen this piece of art called The Lapidarian Tower. I was by an artist called Richard Hawkins, and it was just a stack of buildings. And so I took these out again and started playing around with how I might present them. And so that's what inspired the left-hand screen in Peripheral, because unlike, okay, here I have them in kind of a vertical configuration, and the other way I had them all along a table as if it was a street, and filmed them just with my phone. It was actually it was a pretty bad phone too at the time, but it worked pretty well because you can kind of layer it. I think that's something I would do quite a lot with when I'm working in film, is layer it, and using iMovie really. So it's nothing very highly difficult, but it's nonetheless, I enjoy just what you can do with it. This is this is like a break now. I suppose that's where the film came from. But the reason why I made it was I'd decided to go to NCAD to do an MFA, and this is the lovely studio I was given in the Annex, which is a building on James's Street owned by Guinness, and a shot of it, like a bit of work in progress, and when I was in my first year. And I suppose I was kind of wanting to push my practice and see where it might go, and also I was beginning to get interested in the idea of it might have something more connecting it to conservation, and that's somewhere where I'd probably be moving towards now, is to kind of look more into that. But as part of my second year, so more recently in like 2019, we had to opt for a module, either a thesis or a module they called Exploring Exhibition Dimensions. 5 of us all together who opted for this, and we decided to hold a screening. And the screening, we had to agree on what it would be about. So we called it Merciful Hour, and we decided it would be, I'll read out the blurb for that if you don't mind, because it's probably, I don't want to kind of do it wrong. But it was meant as an evening of experimental film and moving image artworks created in Ireland in reaction to the limited studio space and lack of funding available to artists, to which neither the cause nor the answer is single faceted. The event comprised a 50-minute screening of shorts that didn't necessarily offer a solution or address the crisis directly, but gave an insight into the artist's everyday struggle to maintain a practice, creating a sense of solidarity in a shared experience and showing that creativity can prevail even in a bleak situation. And so we invited Ella and Ula and Aoife Desmond and Ara Devine and Laura Fitzgerald, who actually gave a talk for the Highlanes, the lovely Highlanes, a couple of weeks ago, and Mela Travers to submit or to take part in the Merciful Hour. And myself and Sarah Edmondson were in the group. Of the 5 of us, 2 of us decided we'd submit pieces as well. And that's what I made the Peripheral for. And I was kind of looking at it as, somebody who's constantly searching for a sense of place, and a bit like, I suppose, when you're as an artist, You're often on the fringes of society. You're not really perceived as having a, economic value. Anyway, but you still continue and you still make. So that was the kind of the thought behind it. And we enjoyed it. It was good fun. And this, actually, I should play it for you. I'll be quiet and play it. But this is you can see this on the Highlanes website. And again, it was Lisa O'Neill and Christoph Capewell who composed the music. This is it in the lovely Highlanes installed. I think it looks great. Really delighted, and with such nice company. It's there beside Andrew Vickery. So that's looking forward to being able to get in to see whenever that'll be, and hopefully not too distant future. So that was in December 2019 that I made that. This is, so we all went back to college after, in January, and we were kind of getting set for our final 6 months to the end. And then I took this shot on the 12th of March because when it was announced that all the colleges were closed, we were told to take what we could. And we didn't really know, nobody knew how long that would be, but I couldn't take these because they were just too big. So they stayed in NCAD until we finally got in June. So they were kind of based on spaces that would transform through, disconnection, energy and touch was the kind of idea. And funny, when I'm looking back on it, I'm just realizing how similar or how close they are to these boxes, in that they were, I think I was thinking something like scale wise of something like this, but that didn't occur to me, obviously, at the time. But anyway, when I went home, I had, I couldn't, as I said, I couldn't take the boxes with me. So I made little scale models of them all, so that I could kind of finish the assessments and, you know, prepare for your final, I suppose, the assessments, really. So that was quite difficult, but interesting in a way, because it wasn't something that I was had really planned. Well, nobody knew what they were going to do, so it was a nice way of trying something kind of new. And this is this is what size they are. They're very small, so it was really like just playing around, really. And I use the same materials and then photograph them and set them up. And this is okay. So I did get to finish them, which was great. The first one is called Press Pause. The one in the middle is Hold Still, and that's actually a repurposed kind of computer server cabinet. So, and the last one was called Shed Skin. And I was kind of playing as well with words like press and a hold and a shed. They're all kind of small spaces to confine. But they had, the interiors were very minimal. I guess there was somewhere to sit. That's the Press Pause inside. So you could just sit on that stool. The middle one had a cow brush, and the idea being that these were brushes for cows to increase their milk yield, but actually was to make them feel good. So it was the idea that how important touch is, and we were all isolated and, you know, being encouraged not to touch. So it was kind of funny as well that it kind of took on a whole different, I suppose, agency once COVID kicked in. And then the last one, I had a little swing in it, and that was so that you would kind of sit and swing in this, and it was kind of a nice rocking feeling. And this is how they ended up. That's the NCAD were great. They gave us a show just at the start of January, and we had planned for that to be a physical show that you could visit, but again, because of the next lockdown, that was thwarted. So instead, it became an online show, and I had made this booklet to kind of explain it in a way, or to give it some kind of context so that you would see what you would be expected to do or how you would interact with it. And that's on the NCAD website for the show. But yeah, I enjoyed making it, and I'd like to do maybe more of this in the future. But what was really funny, I wrote a poem, because I thought the boxes looked so functional and kind of austere that it needed some kind of softening. So that's in that little booklet. And yeah, so that's kind of where that more or less ended. I should say I'm actually telling you what I'm at now at the minute, but that's finished. What I've got now to show you are back in April, May, when we were at home and we, you know, trying to find something to do, this idea of abiding or creativity helping you when it's a bleak situation. I kind of ended up making this cape. Don't know if you can see it, that's it over there, hanging up. But it was made out of layers of metal and film, printed in net, and a pair of gloves that I called the Gauntlets of Chance, because they heated up when you put on. They had thermal ink that looked like a net, and then when you put it on, it disappeared. But I think it's probably too cold to actually show them working here. But what was really odd was that when I look back on it, actually sewing that cape was really actually quite painful, because it's got a layer of mesh in the middle, which was so I'd cut that, and I was sewing it, some on the machine and some hand sewn, and I was a bit mad, but I kind of called it like some kind of purposeful distraction, and I kind of needed it to do it. So I kind of felt a bit like, I don't know, something out of a King Lear, or not King, the Children of Lear, or some one of these like myths, stitching the cape in the hope that something miraculous was going to happen. But on the other is a moon hat, and I made this for a show I was going to have last summer with Sarah Edmondson, who was on the course with me. We were planning a show in London, And my idea was that this is it here. It's my little moon hat, and it was the show was to do with our kind of interactions with the moon. And so what I had made was these printed films that you would hang in your window at night. Okay, and so they would charge. They would harvest lunar ozone, and they would charge. And then in the morning, you'd get up and you could fold them up, fully charged with your lunar ozone, and then put it on, and then you would spend your day being nicely balanced with your for the kind of lunar moods. So that was, yeah, it was a bit of fun really, but I kind of liked the idea of making the costume, and I got a little bit carried away with it, but let's see if I can show you them. Yeah, so this is another one I made called The Cap of Insight. Yeah, I gave them all these titles like they were some kind of magical objects. And I made a little film. And I'll show you a little bit of this if you don't mind. You might have had enough film, but I won't spend too long on it, I don't think. If it'll let me. Yeah. So this is called Secretion. And the music for this isn't done by Lisa O'Neill. It's a friend, Mel Gray, who's Acetone Studios. Actually, I should say I used the stills. This was all done before I got back into the boxes. So I used whatever photograph stills I had taken before I left the studio in NCAD. And also I took some pictures of snails because I was looking at snails have a self-healing ability, and they're also hermaphrodites. I'll go forward a bit. Actually, I think I'm going to leave it there because I can see I'm running quicker than, or I'm running out of time in a way. So this is a print I did in September for the Graphic Studio 60th anniversary Diamond Point show, and it's again a snail. I've got a project that I'm working on to kind of harvest or synthesize a snail mucus and print with it as a healing, or as a kind of something that'll toughen when it dries. And I was kind of wondering whether there might be some kind of connection with conservation in that a gel or a mucus, that because we use a lot of poultices and things like that in paper conservation. So this idea of a healing mucus. So yeah, I'm going to work with somebody hopefully in Paris to print on a digital printer that I met through conservation. Yeah, so it'll just be a matter of getting the balance right between the hardening material, which might be something like a calcium hydroxide, and it may be a metal cellulose or something. But yeah, so that's a project that I'm enjoying doing at the minute. This is a print I did called Mind's Eye for a sponsor's portfolio, again for the Graphic Studio, and I'm just showing that because it's linked to another project I'm working on at the minute, which is all I'm calling an attempt at concealment. And these images on the right, at the top and the bottom, are from watercolors in Trinity in the Anatomy Museum, and they are showing young women who were suffering from this kind of rare skin disorder, and they weren't believed. They thought they were making it up and painting themselves just for attention. So each time this kind of black powder was removed, it would reappear, but never when they were being watched. Like, they had all these ways of bandaging them to make them to kind of expose their deceit. And I think it might be indigo, and because indigo has been found in cow urine because they're really long, protracted digestive system. So it could have been, I was thinking it was something to do with the trauma that had interrupted their digestion, and it kind of led to this. And it was actually an Irish doctor, a doctor from Belfast called Dr. Reid, who was the first to believe their story, that it was an illness and not a kind of a fake trickery. So yeah, I'm going to do something maybe on film with that, with Mela again in the darkroom. So yeah, because I think there are lots of mirror parts in this illness that are mirrored in the photographic process. So you've got masking, oxidation, exposure, and light sensitivity. So yeah, I'm going to maybe work on some 16mm film this time, and it might take a more collaborative path. So these are just little test pieces I've been working on different kinds of metals and films. This is them here. I've got they're not big, but I'm just trying out different ways to, the idea of something kind of either falling apart or appearing a bit like a pentimento, or, you know, if I print an unstable medium on a support, whether it'll just start to disintegrate on its own, to show what's underneath. So in all of these, I've got, you know, a print underneath a medium that then I've either scratched away or heated or added a solvent to actually draw the pigment out. So yeah, that might end up being a project. And then my last slide was just where I am. It's going to possibly, this is I'll do this probably in clips. I might just build up a series of little clips and see whether in the end I can how they combine and make a nice little film. But I suppose, like all of them, what I like doing with this filming is filming my work. It's not necessarily, I am in some of them, but I like the idea of the work providing the set or filming it. And that's probably where I'm going to leave it, because I know there's probably only a few minutes left. So if that's okay, I'll stop sharing and go back to you, Aoife.
Oh, that was absolutely fantastic. I have to say, what's so remarkable about your practice is your ability to work from fine art print, drawing, installation, film, and even in that those elements of the making of the sewing. I mean, you have such subtlety in terms of how what way you decide what expression your ideas are going to take, or where they merge in terms of, you know, that element of combination of installation and mixed media. So really fantastic.
That's very nice to hear. Thanks. I feel like I'm just constantly going around in circles, but hopefully good circles.
Can I ask you, I just want to, before we invite any other questions or comments from everybody, if you want to get ready, if you want to ask, just in terms of colour, will you talk to us about colour? I actually, I noticed it so overtly. I kind of thought it was a query that I had. I just thought we're definitely in black and white, except.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I think I'm actually scared of colour in some way. I don't know. I have tried colour. I went mad in first year. I had like yellow and red and pink and blue, and yeah, no, it didn't work for me. I don't know whether it's the print that I loved. I just love black and white print. I love charcoal drawing. I think it's just my personal preference. I kind of keep hoping that maybe sometime in the future I'll wake up and go, oh, today I'm going to do pink or I'll, you know, green. But now it's just, I do try it and then go like the snail. I just draw back in and kind of, yeah, into my little black and white shell.
I have to say that there's great subtlety and beauty, and the work is so poetic and it's so charged.
Oh, thank you.
Really, really so impressive. Once again, thank you for your attendance, Niamh. Thank you so much for being so, I suppose, so generous with going through your practice, thinking about Peripheral, and obviously your past, current, and obviously your future work. And congratulations for all of your, I suppose, ingenuity, because you've been certainly so productive in the time that that we've all been closed. You know, you've just been doing amazing amounts of work. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Aoife, and thanks for this opportunity. It's been lovely to have a chance to share it all with everybody, and to everybody who came. I really do appreciate it. It's lovely.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, and see you soon.